In this episode, we're going to be learning how to create experience and how to level up our character. Hello and welcome to how to create a Vampire Survivor clone in Godot 4. So today we're going to be doing experience, and we're just going to be starting this by adding free variables to our player. Let me just get my reference back on. Fantastic. So we're going to be adding free variables for this very beginning, and then we're going to go and create our experience gem. So we need a variable to track how much experience we have. So experience equals 0. We need a variable to track what level we are. So we're just going to call this experience level. I'm going to make that equal 1. And then we're going to have a variable that handles our collected experience in the specific frame. So we're going to call that collected experience, and we're just going to make that equal 0 for now. We're going to go back to our player eventually, but to begin with, we're going to be creating our gem. So this is going to be an area 2D, and it's going to have a sprite as well as a collision shape on top of a audio sound stream player, which I'm just going to call sound underscore collected. Alright, so if we go into the 2D scene and we type in gem in our search, I'm going to drag and drop the green gem into here, and I'm also just going to make this half the size because it's a little bit big for what we want, and I'm just going to rename this as well, experience gem, and I'm going to click on, just do a Control S for save, and we're going to create a new folder called objects, and I'm going to save my experience gem in there. For the collision, just going to do a rectangle, and we're going to be making this a little bit bigger than our sprite because we want this to be collected. The other thing I want to do is add this experience gem to our loot group, and we'll do a bit more later, but for starters we're going to add our script. So the first thing we want to do is determine how much experience each gem has. So we're going to make this an export variable, and we're just going to call this experience. I'm going to default this to 1. And then we're going to reference all of our sprites down here. So SPR green is going to equal the green sprite, so preload. I'm just going to copy and paste this just to make it a bit quicker. So we'll have SPR blue and SPR red. And I'm just going to drag and drop the green sprite into here. I'm going to place the blue sprite into there and the red sprite into here. I'm also going to be setting a variable for the target, and the target is just going to be what our gem moves into. We can show it later, and we're also going to do a speed for kind of how we collect the gem, and then we're just going to do some onReady vars for our sprite, which is just going to equal sprite 2D. We're going to have our onReady var collision, which is just going to equal our collision shape 2D, and we're also going to have our onReady var sound for our sound collected. All simple stuff. Now we're just going to set the color of our sprite, and this is going to be based on how much experience it has. So if experience is less than 5, we're just going to return the function because it's already set to green, so it's okay. Else, if experience is less than 25, we're going to set our sprite texture to our sprite dot texture to equal sprite blue. And otherwise, our sprite.texture is going to be sprite red. And so if we create a 2D node, which we're going to call loot, and we add our experience gem to it, which I'm just going to move with holding down Alt. You'll see that at the moment it is green, but let's say we increase this to 50. Well, on start, this would load as a red experience gem. So that's all pretty cool, isn't it? All right, let's go back to our experience gem. Now, for our physics process, we're going to be making it so that if our target actually has a value, so does not equal null, we're going to set the global position to move towards. So we're going to do this global position dot move towards target dot global position. At the moment, the target's just going to be our player, but yeah, we don't really need to think about it too hard. And we're going to be doing this with our speed variable, which is 0. So it's not going to do anything at the moment until we do speed plus equals 2 times delta. We're doing delta because we want to divide it by the frame rate. So now, at the moment, this currently does nothing, but I'll show you what it does later. There's a couple more things we need to do. We also need to have a function for when the experience is collected. And for this, we're just going to play a sound. So our sound.play. At the moment, I'll just show you what the gem sound's going to be. It's currently on loop, so I'm just going to go into the import settings and re-import. Also, it's a little bit loud, so I'm going to make this -10 decibels. That's all pretty nice. I'm also going to be setting the collision shape that it has to a call deferred, so that it can't interact again. Now, you may be asking why we don't queue free it, and that's because the sound will stop playing if we queue free it. So we need the experience gem to still exist while the sound is playing if we want the sound to play. So I'm going to do sprite.visible equals false, and I'm also going to be returning our experience, and you'll see why we do this later within our player. And then finally, I'm going to connect the signal for our audio stream player finished, and after that we queue free it. So we're simply just, so the reason why we're doing it here is because I want the sound to actually play. And this, I believe, is all we need to do in our experience gem. Now, I'm just going to preemptively make this on the loot layer. And you're going to see why, because at the moment, we have an experience gem, but we don't have any way to really collect it. So this is what we're going to be doing next. So I'm just going to close some of these. I'm also going to be hiding our enemy detection, because we're going to be adding 2 new areas. So we're going to be adding one there, and we're going to be adding one there. So in our player, the first area we're going to call is called grab area. The next one is going to be collect area. So our grab area is going to be a bit larger, so we're going to have to add collision shapes to this, and these are just going to be circles. I'm going to make this, let's go with 50 pixels. So and this is going to assign the target to our gem so it floats towards the player, and then I'm going to have another area for our collect, which is going to call the collect function in the node, in the experience gem node. So you'll see that soon, and it can be pretty small. So that's all that really needs to happen with shaping them, but we also need to add it to the loot mask. So collision loot mask, and I'll just hide it from there. So now we have to actually add the functions. So I'm going to be starting with the area entered as well as the collect area. So the area entered of both of them. So I'm just going to get to my reference just to make sure that I'm doing everything correctly. So if area.is in group loot, we're going to set the area.target to our player. And then on the collect area, we're going to do a if area.is in group loot we're going to do var gem experience equals area.collect. Now we're doing a variable on this because our collect function that we just made returns the experience value from the experience gem. And we're going to calculate the experience next, but first I'm just going to play just to show you what this looks like. You can see that it looks like it was collected and plays a nice sound. So the other thing that we should probably do is add a small bounce. So a way to do this is just to make the speed start off with a negative. So it goes in the opposite direction initially, and then it comes back to us. So that's how we get a small bounce. Just a small little notice there. And you can see right here, this is the return for the collect function. So now we have to add a bunch of calculation variable, a bunch of calculation functions. So the first one is going to be calculate experience, and this is going to need the gem experience as an argument. And now we have to create our function. So calculate experience, and this is just going to be gem XP as the argument. And the way this is going to work is that first we need to get our actual experience cap for the level. So XP required, and this is going to be experience required to level, is going to be a new function that we're going to create called calculate experience cap, which is another function that we have to create. So we're just going to create that now, calculate experience cap. And this is just going to be how we do our levels. So we're going to create a variable called XP cap equals experience level. So the experience cap is going to be what we return. But at the moment, it's only going to equal 1 since we default to level 1. But we're going to say if experience level is less than 20, we're going to set our experience cap to equal experience level times 5. Else if we're going to set our experience cap, hold up, getting ahead of myself. Else if the experience level is less than 40, we're going to set our experience cap to plus 95 times our experience level minus 19 times 8. So it's kind of like a progressive tax bracket, where the first 20 levels you have to get like 5 experience. The next 20 levels you have to get 8 experience, and then after that, which is our else, we're just going to have our experience cap equals 255 plus experience level minus 39 times 12. And finally, we return the experience cap. So return experience cap. And this is going to be the value that gets returned. So this is going to be the experience required. So after we do that, we insert all of our GemXP into our collected experience variable, which is just going to be kind of like our handler for how we handle collected experience in the frame that we collected. So first of all, we want to check if we're going to level. So if experience plus collected experience, so as the previous collected experience plus the current collected experience that we just got from the gem is greater or equal to the XP required, which is just our level up. I'm just going to add a comment, level up. And I should also probably add a colon just to make sure that we're going to make it so that number one, we're going to be reducing our collected experience by the experience required, but also by our experience. So we've got the amount that the level requires minus the experience that we already have. And this will and so we'll have some remaining experience probably when we level occasionally. So after we do that, we're going to increase our level by plus equals 1. So plus equals 1. We're also going to be setting our current experience to 0 because we've already transferred pretty much all of it, since we just want to start from fresh and we have all our remaining experience in our collected experience. And then we're going to do a experience required equals calculate experience cap, because we need to recalculate what the new experience cap is to level next time. And then we're just going to be doing a else experience plus equals collected experience. And then after that, we're going to just set the collected experience equals 0. Now, when this happens, we can kind of just print it out. So print experience, let's just do level hyphen, and then we just do experience level. And you'll kind of see that if we change our experience gem right here to, let's just go with 5 for the moment, we level to level 2. But you may also notice there is a slight problem where things don't really loop correctly. So if we go for 50, we are still only on level 2, even though we've collected way more experience than we honestly probably should. So there is something else that we need to do in order to fix this, and that is not going to our world, but pretty much once we all do this, so once we've done this all, we're going to have to call the function again. So we're just going to do a calculate experience, but we're going to add 0 experience. So when we level up, we're actually going to call our function again and use whatever remaining collected experience we have. So now when we run, you'll see that we go from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. And that makes sure that we're not missing experience when we are leveling up. Now, the next thing I think we should add is some UI elements. So I am going to add a canvas layer. And this is just kind of a drawing layer. I'm going to call this GUI layer. And I'm going to add our first green node, which is our control, which is just like a basic, it's like an anchor for our UI components. So blue is for 2D nodes, green is for graphical user interface related nodes. They are a little bit different. So for the layout, I'm going to set this to the full screen size, so that's 640. And you'll see that the camera, we can ignore the camera, we just have to care about this blue line here. And we're going to be making this 640 by 360 just to cover the entire thing. And I think that works well. I'm just going to call this GUI. And I'm going to be adding a texture progress bar. There's a lot of graphical user interface nodes. We're just going to ignore them for now and just add the texture progress bar. And what this does is it creates a progress bar for while using a texture. I think I'll just show you here. So if I just type in EXP, I'll have our experience background, which creates a bar at the top of the screen, and my experience progress here, which currently does nothing. But if we go into our fill and we increase the value, let's make this 50, you'll see that it actually fills the bar up. And this is what we're going to use. I'm just going to make it default to 0, and I'm also going to change this name to experience bar. The other thing I'm going to do is add a label to this, and we're just going to call this label level. And I'm just going to type in sort of an example of what I want the text to be, so level 1. Now, I can insert my own font into this by going to theme override, fonts, and then I'm just going to type in OFT or OTF for the font, which is going to be tenderness, and that's going to change how it looks. I'm going to change the font size from 1 to 16, which I think is what it was already on, actually, funnily enough. And then I am just going to set the boundaries of this. So number 1, I want my label, let me see, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, and I always forget where everything is because there are a lot of different areas. So I know that I need to go into the layout. There we go. All right, so I'm going to make this 100 pixels by 20 pixels so that it's in line with the bar. And I'm also going to set the position of 540. So what you'll see right there is that if we scroll over, you'll see that it's right on the edge. I'm also going to be changing the default kind of alignment. So I'm going to make this the horizontal alignment center. We can make the vertical alignment center, though I think that's a bit short. I'm going to make it bottom, and I think that looks pretty good, all things considered. So I'm going to make these access as unique paths because we're going to be writing some code that actually interacts with both of these UI components. So the first thing we need to do is, unfortunately, reference them up above. So I'm just going to scroll down here, and I'm going to be creating a new kind of area where I set onReady. So, and I'm just going to be commenting GUI. So we're going to be doing an onReady var, and we're just going to be scrolling down, and we're just going to be doing XP bar equals get node, and it is going to be our unique name that we set. So experience bar. I hope that's, yep, that is what I wrote. And then we'll have onReady var label level, and that's going to equal get node label underscore level. And that's currently all we need to do. Oh, get node rather than nide. I Fantastic. All right, so now we're going to write a function on simply just adjusting everything that we need to. So I'm just going to start by writing the function set xp bar. And we're going to have two arguments. We're going to have an argument to set the value, and this is just going to default equal to 1. And we're going to have an argument to set max value, and this is going to default equal to 100. And what this is going to do is we're going to set the experience var value to our first argument, which is going to be set value. And then we're going to be setting the experience bar dot max value to equal the set max value. Now, looks like the errors have cleaned themselves up. We are going to have to call this, and we're going to be calling this at the set experience bar. Like at the bottom, after all of this is done, we're just going to set the experience bar. So experience. And we're going to be making the first argument the experience, and the second argument the experience required, which I think works rather well. And then I'm going to also run this on my ready function, but instead of experience required, we're going to just call the function directly that actually got the experience that was required. So and we need to add another bracket there. And so now I'm just going to go into my world, and I'm going to set this to 1 gem. I'm going to duplicate this a couple times, and I'm just going to separate them holding Alt. There we go. And now when I walk towards them, hopefully I'll be able to collect them, and you'll see that, yep, the bar is going up. And now I collect them all, and oh yes, I forgot, I also have to change the label text. And this is going to be, instead of our print here that experiences the level, we're going to do label level dot text equals string level space, and then I'm just going to do the experience level. Okay, fantastic. Let's see if we can get a level again. Oh, doesn't like that. Why doesn't it like that? Oh, label level text, not texture. Of course it doesn't like that. Alright. There we go, and now we're level 2. Fantastic. So, I believe that the next thing I need to do here is delete all of these experience gems, and I'm just going to preemptively add this loot variable to this loot group to our loot node. So now that we've done all of this, we need to actually spawn our loot gem, and that means going back to our enemy script. So I'm just gonna quickly get my enemy back up in my reference script. Fantastic, we have got this. So the first thing I need to do is go to a onReady var loot underscore base, and this is going to be very similar to the player get tree dot get first node in group, and this is going to get the first node, which is going to be our loot node. All pretty simple stuff. And then we're just going to have a preload of our experience gem. So experience gem equals preload, and I'm just going to type in gem, and I'm just going to drag and drop our gem into our preload. And this is all we need to do for now. And now to spawn it, we're just going to go into def, and just like we do with the enemy def, we're going to spawn it. So this is just going to be variable new underscore gem equals experience gem. Let me see. Dot instantiate. Then we've got new gem dot global position, which is going to equal our global position. Then we got new gem dot experience, which is going to equal a variable that we forgot to make, which is going to be a export var experience, which is going to equal 1. So this is how much experience our enemy is going to drop. So experience. And then just like our, so very similarly to our explosion, but instead of get parent, we're going to spawn this on the loot base. So loot base dot call the third, and we're using call the third to add our children because we're queue freeing the enemy right after this, and it seems like you just can't do it on the same frame. And we're going to type in new gem. So now when we kill our enemies, we should be able to spawn an experience gem and successfully be able to level up with enemies killed. So let's see if we can do this without the game crashing. So I'm just going to let my javelin do all the work. So we've collected our first gem, and it looks like it's all working pretty well. It's got that nice bounce animation. And we leveled up. So that is our experiencing, well, that's us getting experience. In the next episode, we'll actually do proper leveling, graphical user interface stuff. But otherwise, I'll meet you in Theory Time. To spawn our experience gem, we have added it to the enemy def function. We can adjust the amount of experience we want the gem to have by altering the exported experience variable on our enemy. The experience gem, when spawned, will check how much experience it has and then change the sprite based on the number of experience given. The order is green, blue, then red, like in Zelda. The movement of the gem only occurs when the gem is assigned a target, which happens when the player gets near the gem. We move the gem by adjusting the global position to move towards the target's global position. The speed starts off with a negative value to initially go in the opposite direction, but as time goes on, we increase the speed to where it starts going towards the player at an ever-accelerating pace. When the gem gets very near the player, the collect function will be called, and all it does is play a sound. The collision shape gets disabled, the sprite gets set to invisible, and we return the experience variable for our player. The gem is then queue freed when the sound finishes, which is about 0.3 seconds afterwards. We only queue free it now because the sound is associated with the gem, and if we queue free the gem, the sound will also be deleted and queue freed. In our player script, you can see that the grab area entered signal will add a target to the gems it comes across, and the collect area will call the gem's collect function to get the experience, and to start the process of removing the gem from the game. Once the gem is collected, the calculate experience function is called, with the experience gained as an argument, and in this function, we see if we need to level the character up, or just add the collected experience to the experience variable, which acts as our pool of how much experience we have collected. To start, we need to work out how much experience we need to level. This is done with the calculate experience cap function. The calculate experience cap function takes our player's level and pretty much makes it so that the first 19 levels will only require 5 experience for each level added on top of each other. The next 20 will require 19 times 5 levels, or plus 95, and then whatever level is above 19 to require an additional 8 experience per level. And for every level after 39, we add 19 times 5 plus 20 times 8, which is 255, to the experience cap, and then we add any level above 39 to be an additional 12 experience, effectively creating an ever-increasing level curve. Once we know how much experience we need to level, we will add our gem experience argument to our collected experience variable. We check if our previous collected experience plus our newly collected experience is above what is required to level. If it isn't, we just add our collected experience to our experience variable. Set collected experience variable to 0 and end the loop. If not, however, we will be taking whatever collected experience we need to level, and this is done by subtracting the experience required to level by whatever experience we have already acquired. So if we collect 100 experience, but we only need 20 to level, we will only take 20 experience from the collected experience. Afterwards, we increase our level by 1. We change the level label text to our new level. We set our main experience tracking variable to 0. We recalculate how much experience we need again, and then we call the function again with 0 experience to effectively create a loop until all of the collected experience is distributed. After all of this is done, we set the experience bar value with the remaining experience and the max value with the experience required to level. This will make sure that our experience bar will accurately display how close we are to leveling.